The rain hammered against the cathedral, windows like 1,000 accusing fingers as Marcus. Webb pushed his mop across the marble floor, trying to make himself invisible. He'd learned that art over 15 years of cleaning up after the wealthy, be present but unseen, helpful but silent. But today something felt wrong, terribly wrong. And when Marcus Webb got that feeling in his gut, the one that had kept his daughter safe through countless nights when they had nothing but each other, he couldn't ignore it. The funeral of Richard Ashford, tech billionaire and philanthropist, was set to begin in 30 minutes. Already Blacktown cars lined the street outside, disgorging men in expensive suits and women draped in designer mourning attire. Marcus had scrubbed these floors since dawn, polished every brass fixture until it gleamed, arranged chairs with military precision. This was his cathedral, even if he was just the help. He knew every corner, every shadow, every secret these walls held. But he also knew something nobody else seemed to notice. The man in the gray maintenance uniform near the organ pipes hadn't been here yesterday. Marcus had worked alongside the regular maintenance crew for over a decade, knew their faces better than he knew his own reflection. This stranger kept checking his watch, kept glancing toward the Audi front entrance where the billionaire's casket would soon be wheeled in. His hands trembled slightly as he adjusted something in his toolbox, and Marcus recognized that tremor. He'd seen it before in the hands of desperate men. Marcus's daughter Emma was homesick today, 12 years old with the flu, probably watching cartoons in their tiny apartment across town. He'd promised her he'd be home by 3 to make her favorite soup. He should keep his head down, finish his work, collect his paycheck. Getting involved in rich people's business had never ended well for people like him. But that feeling in his gut wouldn't let him walk away. He approached the stranger slowly, mop still in hand, trying to look casual. "Hey there, you new on the maintenance team?" The man's eyes snapped to Marcus, cold and calculating. "Just here for the organ repair." "Mind your business, janitor." That's when Marcus saw it, a glimpse, inside the toolbox as the man shifted his weight. Not tools, wires, devices, something that made Marcus's blood run ice cold. "I need you to leave," Marcus said quietly, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "Now!" The man's hand moved toward the toolbox, but Marcus was faster. Years of working double shifts, of carrying his daughter on his shoulders, of manual labor that made his body strong even as it wore him down, all of it came together in one swift movement. He swung the mop handle, connecting with the man's wrist just as fingers closed around something inside the box. "Security!" Marcus shouted, his voice echoing through the cathedral like a crack of thunder. "Security now!" What happened next unfolded in chaos. The man lunged for his toolbox, but Marcus tackled him, both of them crashing into a row of chairs. Security guards rushed in, their confusion evident. Why was the janitor attacking a maintenance worker? But Marcus held on, even as fists connected with his ribs, even as he tasted blood in his mouth. "Check the toolbox!" he gasped. "Check it!" One of the security guards, an ex-cop named Davis who'd always treated Marcus with respect, grabbed the toolbox. His face went pale as he looked inside. Within seconds, the cathedral was being evacuated. Bomb squad sirens wailed in the distance. The stranger was subdued, cursing and fighting as police dragged him away. Marcus sat on the cathedral steps, his uniform torn, his lip bleeding, watching as the funeral guests clustered in confused groups across the street. The bomb squad worked for 3 hours. When they finally emerged, their faces told the story. Multiple devices, sophisticated triggers, designed to bring down significant portions of the cathedral during the service. Hundreds would have died. The city's most powerful, most influential citizens, all gathered in one place. It would have been catastrophic. Marcus expected nothing. He'd done what anyone would do, what anyone should do. He called Emma to tell her he'd be late with the soup, tried to downplay the pain in his voice as his cracked ribs protested. He just wanted to go home, wanted to hold his daughter and forget this whole nightmare. But the Ashford family had other ideas. 3 days later, Marcus opened his apartment door to find an elderly woman in an elegant black dress standing in his hallway, completely out of place in the shabby building, where paint peeled from walls and the elevator never worked. "Mr. Webb, I'm Catherine Ashford, Richard's widow." Marcus's mind reeled. He'd seen her on TV, at charity galas, cutting ribbons at hospital openings. She had no business being here, looking at him with eyes that seemed to see straight through to his soul. "May I come in?" Emma peeked out from behind Marcus, her fever finally broken, curiosity overcoming shyness. Marcus let Mrs. Ashford in, mortified by their cramped space, the second-hand furniture, the stains on the carpet he could never quite remove no matter how hard he scrubbed. But Mrs. Ashford didn't seem to notice. She sat down carefully on their worn couch and looked at Marcus with something he'd rarely seen from the wealthy, genuine respect. "You saved my children," she said simply. "My grandchildren. 347 people would have died in that cathedral. The police told me you were the only one who noticed, the only one who acted. They said you risked your life to stop him." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "I just did what was right." "Yes," she said softly. "You did. My husband spent his entire life trying to do what was right, building companies, creating jobs, donating to causes he believed in. But in his final moment, it wasn't his money or his power that protected the people he loved. It was a janitor who paid attention, who cared enough to act when action was required." She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. Marcus started to protest, but she held up her hand. "My husband left detailed instructions for his estate. He was a planner, Mr. Webb. He had provisions for every contingency, but he also had a clause that gave me discretionary power to honor anyone who performed an extraordinary act of service to our family. I'm exercising that power now." Inside the envelope was a check that made Marcus's hands shake. More money than he'd earned in 20 years of mopping floors. Enough to pay off every debt, to move to a better neighborhood, to send Emma to any college she dreamed of attending. But there was something else, too. A letter, handwritten from Mrs. Ashford herself. In it, she offered Marcus a position overseeing facility operations for all Ashford properties. Not as a janitor, but as a director, with a salary and benefits that would secure Emma's future. She wrote about how her husband had always believed that character mattered more than credentials, that observant eyes and caring hearts were the rarest commodities in the world. "I don't know what to say," Marcus whispered, tears streaming down his face. "Say yes," Emma piped up from beside him, her small hand gripping his. "Say yes, Dad." Marcus looked at his daughter, at the hope shining in her eyes, at the woman who'd traveled across the city to honor a janitor's courage. He thought about all the times he'd felt invisible, all the years he'd worked in shadows while others took credit for his careful attention to detail. And he realized that being seen, truly seen, was worth more than any amount of money. 6 months later, Marcus stood in a newly renovated community center in his old neighborhood, cutting a ribbon alongside Mrs. Ashford. The Ashford Foundation had funded the project, but Marcus had designed it, chosen every detail to serve the families who needed it most. Inside were after-school programs, job training, healthcare services, all the things Marcus had desperately needed during those lean years raising Emma alone. That night, tucking Emma into bed in their new home, she asked him if he missed mopping floors. Marcus smiled. "You know what? Sometimes I do. There was something peaceful about it, something honest. But I learned something important, sweetheart. It doesn't matter if you're cleaning floors or running companies. What matters is paying attention, caring about what you see, and having the courage to act when action is needed. That's what makes us human. That's what makes us matter." Emma hugged him tight. "You've always mattered, Dad. Always." And in that moment, Marcus Webb understood that the real gift wasn't the money or the job. It was the reminder that one person, paying attention, choosing to act, could change everything. That kindness and courage weren't about status or wealth. They were about character. And character, as it turned out, was the one thing that truly made you rich.